Our program today is by Mr. D.A.Calloway. I've known D.A. for several years. When I owned a little place called Lindbergh's in 1979, he came in and said, "I'm with the Midnight Plowboys and I want to play this place," and he did. And then later, a few years later, I was booking acts and managing acts, and he had this service pig. Back then it was just this hog that he worked with, but now for him to take it into a hotel, he'd have to call it the service hog or something. But and we were working on getting D.A. on the Johnny Carson show because it was a great act, and he fired the hog, and so we went on. But that was when he's with Silver Dollar City, and he's been with Silver Dollar City for a long time and has really helped them float their bluegrass boat and maybe a few other boats. But we all know what a great organization Silver Dollar City is, and when you hear and see about their bluegrass and all that stuff they do, D.A. gets all the credit, and he's been certified 2 or 3 times for the National Bluegrass Association Promoter of the Year or something, whatever the exact title is. But at this time, we'd like Mr. Calloway come up, and we'll see what he's got to say.
Thanks, Bob.
I should have taken the stairs.
Well, it's a great surprise to see so many friendly and wonderful faces here. I've got some prepared notes, just under 2 hours, I think is what it's running. I'm D.A. Calloway. I'm going to read my notes so I don't forget what I was supposed to say or what I'd planned to say. I'm delighted to be invited here by my longtime friend, Chris Albert. And we've been buddies quite a while. I first knew of Chris when he decided at a young age to run for sheriff against Christian County Sheriff Buff Lamb. And it was Mickey Owen here in Greene County? Okay, folks, I will not ruin a good story for lack of a few facts. I want you, okay. Thank you. And thanks for laughing too. Hey, I was raised on a small homestead on the dead end of West High Street here in Springfield. So this is my hometown. I went through school at Willard, Missouri, but I now live near the town of Galena with my best friend and my spouse of 38 years, Mary. We have 2 grown children and 2 grandchildren, both aged 4, and they are cousins. Currently, I serve as a festival producer and talent coordinator for special events at Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. I was raised by my grandparents and a single mother. I was the second of 4 brothers. I grew up in a family that was serious about 2 things, church and music. We attended our home church on Sunday mornings, Sunday evenings, Wednesday evenings, and if somebody said revival, we just moved right in. Just stay right there. And so that's kind of how I got started. Our mother was a great alto singer. She sang in a quartet as a hobby, and I was the second of 4 brothers, and our mother taught us kids to sing harmony parts, and she eventually turned us into a little kids gospel quartet. And in our little suits and ties, we often performed at church functions or community functions, and we sang songs by the Stamps Quartet or the Statesman, Chuckwagon Gang, and the Florida Boys. And when we were home, I played piano as much as possible. My grandpa wallpapered a piano teacher's house in exchange for her teaching me to read music. But I had much more fun picking out tunes and chords by ear. That old piano became my best friend. Through junior high and high school, I played trumpet, not well, but adequate for the situation. And after high school, I entered the music department of SMS, now Missouri State University. During that first year, I changed my major to business, since it was obvious I was not going to cut it as a vocal major. You can tell by the accent how that Italian operatic thing went. And so I changed to a business major. And the fact is, I never did want to study music in the first place. I just wanted to play music. And I would visit the Ellis Hall practice rooms at all hours and pick out tunes that I'd heard, or trade licks and ideas with other students who shared my affliction. And that's where I met Dallas Bartley. Dallas was born in 1916. He'd grown up in Springfield, escaped to Chicago, and had become a professional jazz bassist and composer. He toured the world with Earl Hines, D.A.Calloway, Duke Ellington, Louis Jordan. In retirement, here he was back in Springfield taking college courses and just enjoying life. Dallas knew all about the craft of playing music for a living. In those days, that was a view completely different from the academic world of music. And Dallas had endless good stories. Dallas was a hero to me and most other Springfield music lovers. I'd follow him to a regular gig he had with pianist Bob Betts. Those guys gave me hope that a musician could gig for a living and have fun doing it. Anybody here remember Dallas or Bob Betts? Lloyd, I know you would. And Bob. So that gave me hope that you could actually make a living in the music business. Now, going to college was a joyous time for me, but college was never meant to be enjoyed at the level that suited me at the time. And not exactly a scholastic achiever, I once asked my advisor, Mr. Skiffington, what he thought would be my best tactic. He said, if I were you, I'd start going to school someplace else and never tell them you went here. So, among my first paying gigs was Shakey's Pizza Parlor, working for Eddie Crabb. What a guy. Well, anyway, at Shakey's, you'd play on the sound system, and you'd be overrun by the announcement of the next pizza order that was ready, which was playing cards. So it'd be the 3 of hearts, your order's ready. And then you just go right back into what you were doing. But it was big fun. And I loved meeting people and talking with anybody, young or old, about music. One day I got a call from my friend Richard Valdick that Silver Dollar City was looking for a ragtime piano player. That was in 1976. My first day on the job, I believe I knew that I would spend my life in a fantasy world called Silver Dollar City, just doing music and having fun. About this time, I joined a band that Bob mentioned, the Midnight Plowboys. We played southern rock, country, bluegrass, blues, some original music. We stayed up late and we ate a truck stop breakfast many times. Sleep didn't seem as important back then. In 1981, the year our daughter was born, Silver Dollar City needed a trumpet player for a Dixieland jazz band called the River Rats. I held that job for 11 years. During that time, I also played in the novelty duo, the Smith Brothers, which was me and Greg Becker. Greg and I played everywhere possible, from country clubs to Commercial Street. We had more fun on Commercial Street. We also thoroughly enjoyed a couple of stints as the pit orchestra for the Chameleon Puppet Theater. Y'all remember Chameleon? Wasn't that a great deal? Leon. Boy, they could entertain the grade school kids. They'd bring them in, the 3rd and 4th graders, by the busload, and we'd have our shows and big fun.
Didn't I see the Smith Brothers at Knauer's wedding at the Vanderbilt Theater?
We played the after
After the wedding.
I believe. Yeah, thanks for remembering that, Chris.
It was a highlight.
It was fun. Rodney Dillard and Dean Webb, who a lot of people knew from the Andy Griffith Show, as they were part of the Darlin family. Rodney and Dean moved to Branson with some great musicians in 1983. As the Dillards, they performed nightly in Silver Dollar City's Echo Hollow Amphitheater beginning in 1984. I was the piano player in that show, meaning I worked with the River Rats in the day and then with the Dillards in the evenings. which was not uncommon in those days because Branson shows were closed during the winter months and you had to earn enough in the summer to make it through the off season. Our handsome son was born in May of 1985, and that was the only time I missed a date with the Dillards. One day in 1992, Silver Dollar City entertainment manager Rex Burdett asked me if I would be interested in learning to book talent for the company. Silver Dollar City gave me an office, a telephone, and my own business cards. I thought I'd gone to heaven, folks. I was still in the music business and actually putting to use what little I'd learned of accounting and business practices.
How long did the Dillards play there?
4 years, I believe.
Did they ever do that song they had, what's time to a hog? What's a rubber to a duck? What's the old cow think when butter on the truck?
I believe they did. I believe the comedian in that show, whose name was Jack McDowell, I believe he sang that song on stage.
Mitch wrote it.
Mitch Jane, great songwriter, great personality, great entertainer, that's for sure. Serving as talent coordinator for the theme park, I lined up contract entertainment for what was once called Mountain Folks Music Festival, which morphed into the Great American Music Festival, which morphed into the Festival of American Music and Craftsmanship, eventually becoming National Harvest and Cowboy Festival, still containing live music. But the music festival business was eventually split into two standalone events, Bluegrass and Barbecue, 3 weeks in May, and Southern Gospel Picnic, 12 days and nights in late August and early September. Over the years, I've booked and become acquainted with some of the biggest names in bluegrass and gospel music. Fortunately, both these festivals are still successful. Bluegrass and Barbecue won the International Bluegrass Music Association IBMA's award for Bluegrass Event of the Year in 2011, a proud feat considering there are several hundred annual bluegrass festivals in the United States as well as festivals in 13 foreign countries. The Society for the Preservation of Bluegrass Music of America, SPIGMA, named me Bluegrass Promoter of the Year in 2012 and 2013. I truly wish I could melt down those trophies and give a chunk to each of the awesome technicians and musicians responsible for these accolades. In October of 2013, I accepted on behalf of the Hershin family, owner of Silver Dollar City and Dollywood, the Les Beasley Award given to a person or company that has made a significant impact in the field of gospel music. A highlight of my post-performer career has been the annual Silver Dollar City KSMU Youth and Bluegrass Band Contest. Mike Smith of KSMU Seldom Heard Music and I discussed this idea early in 2002. We shared in the hope that we could do something to encourage young musicians to continue in the cultural traditions of American music. Our first contest was held on the Silver Dollar City gazebo. We had 8 bands. It was September of 2002. We have an audience of about 100, and we've been amazed at the growth. In 2014, this event included 20 bands representing 11 states, played before a standing room only crowd in an 850-seat theater. And this May, on the 23rd, we will celebrate our 14th KSMU Youth and Bluegrass Band Contest. This contest has become a powerful networking, relationship building device and a platform for creating lifetime friendships between young musicians from all over the country. Hundreds of youngsters and their families have participated. When it comes to booking national touring acts, the payoff is the satisfaction of knowing we gave the customers a world-class show. But the most rewarding part of my job is to be involved in the pipeline of developing talent. The people who make a decent living as entertainers don't need any help. The aspiring journeyman does need encouragement and a pat on the back, not to mention a paying gig with a live audience. Birds and whales can sing, but as far as I know, no animal plays instrumental music except for humans. If you're a musician, either in a string quartet, a honky-tonk band, or a Sunday morning praise team, you learn to listen Being part of a musical ensemble advances work ethic, respect for others, communication, and cooperation. It advances abstract thinking. Music is an essential ingredient in a well-rounded education. I found joy and a livelihood in an unusual business, the music business. Along the way, I've learned to circumvent what I call musical bigotry. That is, to think one kind of music is superior over another. In other words, I may think the music I listen to is awesome, while the music you listen to may not be. The lyrics, the instrumentation, the feel may be different, but folks, there are only 12 notes, and we share those 12 notes with the rest of the world. If anybody likes it, it is art, and it serves a purpose. Friends, 100 years from right now, the names and lives of most, if not all of us in this room will be forgotten. And that hurts my heart to admit it. But the actions we can take to be kind to encourage, to lift up another person creates ripples that may continue for a long, long time. I wish you and I could always remember this in our daily interactions. In closing, I'll always be thankful to my mother for the gift of music. She hoped her children would make wholesome and healthy lifestyle choices. I've not always lived up to that standard, but we each have the ability to reinvent ourselves every day. And I believe that is a gift from God. Looking back, I can say it's been an honor and a blessing to be a part of the world of music. Thank you for your kind attention, and I welcome any comments or questions. Thank you.
What year did you enroll in SMS?
70.
That's when I got out.
That's when you got out, was it?
Yep, January 7th.
I was there. I remember seeing you, but you didn't see me, so.
Chris?
Why don't you tell that story about you and Greg up in Kansas City when you went and played that party?
I will. Greg Becker and I were called upon to play any number of strange and unimaginable gigs because there were just two of us and we worked cheap. And somebody called once and said, would you like to play in the Uptown Theater in Kansas City? Nice place, beautiful theater. Everybody in show business for 60 years had signed the wall in the dressing room. And we went up there and got set up and sound checked. And the crowd's coming in, dressed up, tuxes, evening gowns. Well, we found out pretty soon there wasn't any women there. And the name of the party was Steppin' Out Ball, the Steppin' Out Ball. And we played our regular gig, and well, it was kind of a bizarre deal. But we got paid, lived through it, and made it home all right. So, thanks for asking.
Did you play that song, Muff Diving in the Virgin Islands?
Chris, I got to tell you, I'm going to quote an American hero. His name was Kit Carson. And Kit was an Indian fighter and an early explorer. And his name, I guess because it had a ring to it, people wrote novels and stories, magazine articles and newspaper articles about the adventures of Kit Carson. Somebody one time had a novel about the life of Kit Carson, and that person came to Mr. Carson and says, are these stories true? And Kit Carson said, they may well be true, but I have no recollection of them. So, Mike?
D.A., would you share your equally interesting story about you and Greg on a prairie home campaign? I want to hear that one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Greg Becker and I had not played together for 5 or 6 years. But when the time we did play together, we had a cassette tape we made, and a friend of ours had moved to Colorado. She had the cassette tape, and she entered Greg and I in a contest on Prairie Home Companion called Bands from Towns Under 2,000. We didn't know it. But Greg got a phone call from the producer of the show saying, we want you to come play on the Prairie Home Companion show. And of course, Greg thought it was a hoax of some kind. But after a couple more phone calls, the producer convinced Greg that that was true. And so they flew us to St. Paul. Here we are in the Fitzgerald Theater, and we meet Mr. Keeler, and we see what the deal is there. His world of radio had no set. You don't need a set in the radio, except that there's 4,000 people sitting out there in the audience. And Garrison held his microphone in one hand, no notes. He'd pad back and forth across the stage, no shoes, just wearing red socks. And that was visually the entertainment package right there, folks. So, but anyway, Garrison was very nice. He put us on the show, and the audition tape that our friend sent was a song called Chainsaw Sally, which was kind of a parody of the Mustang Sally song. And so we did that for the producer, and she said, now that's just about 2 minutes. She said, you could have another minute. You need to really do something. And we played several songs, and I had written a tune, and the hook of the tune was, if you hurt me, I'll kill you. So played that for her. Yeah, she said, do that. Well, we did that. Well, the audience was aghast. It seems that in that very week, the newspaper headlines was all about a murder, a domestic violence murder deal where somebody had murdered their spouse. So the timing was not that well. Well, we did not win the contest, folks. But we did go to a jam session with the band, great band on the show. After the words, and Garrison Keeler had a party for the guests on the show. And we got to play with the band, and as we went around the room, everybody was supposed to do something. And so Greg and I decided we're going to sing a harmony yodeling version of I Want to Be a Cowboy Sweetheart, changing the words to I Want to Be a Cowgirl Sweetheart. And we sang that, and we yodeled it, and stayed in tune pretty well all the way through. And Garrison says, why in the world didn't you do that on the show? But it was too late, but thanks for the question. Well, thank you, folks. I appreciate sharing my life with you.